Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Modernization Mondays. Today's session is all about cloud modernization and scaling with confidence. I am joined today by Nidhi Ram. Hi, Nidhi.
Hey, Ariana.
And we are talking about cloud modernization. Just as a reminder, this is one of a series of 4 webinars. So if you haven't caught the first one, Legacy System Modernization, we encourage you to look back and review that recording. And then we also have 2 more to look forward to, process automation and architecture modernization, more precisely experts, and lots of really great discussion to come. Nidhi, today we are talking everything cloud. And that, again, I was talking to Ashwin in our first series, and we were saying how legacy modernization is such a big topic. And it feels like cloud modernization is another one of those things where, oh my God, where do you start? Where do you go? And so my first question to you is, a lot of organizations are really thinking about cloud modernization, or we've seen people think about cloud modernization as lift and shift. You got something on-prem, you got to bring it to the cloud. Let's go from A to B. But from your perspective, what are some of the biggest pitfalls people have with that approach? And what should companies be doing instead when it comes to moving to the cloud?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ariana. And I spend a lot of time talking to customers in my role. So I've seen kind of different companies approach things different ways. And you do have folks that kind of come with an initiative like cloud modernization as the headline. But the companies that do it really well and the ones that have the most success approach it differently. They don't come at it from the perspective of, hey, I want to modernize to the cloud. They come at it from the perspective of, here's my business problem. It's like anything else that you're trying to do. If you start with the problem or the initiative, whether it's a targeted marketing campaign or fraud detection or another analytics challenge or AI, right? You have a specific AI initiative that you're trying to get off the ground. Starting with the business problem can really help focus what you're trying to do and make sure it's tied to an ROI for your organization, for your executives, for your leadership. And that is so much better than sort of having the hammer of the cloud and then looking for nails to hit that hammer. That generally doesn't work as well because it is, there's costs associated and there's bandwidth associated with doing all of this. So you want to make sure you're putting that effort towards something that's going to bring you a ton of value. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's a great point. We have a saying in product marketing, it's like if you're something to everyone, you're kind of nothing. And it feels like that with cloud modernization. Like if you don't start with a business problem or focused objective, probably not going to be a successful project, right?
Absolutely. And the other thing to think about when you're doing anything that is as large as cloud modernization or even legacy modernization or these larger initiatives, there's technology, which is a really important piece, of course, of the equation. But then there's more than technology. There's the people part of it that you have to bring them along for the ride and all the change management that needs to happen. There's the process, the business processes part of it. And so when you take that more holistic approach, which is really, business problem driven and derive a strategy that comes out of that, that can inform not only your technology decisions, but everything else, which can really make the overall initiative a much better success for you.
And, I think there's a lot of promise in cloud. I think people see the cloud. Maybe that's why people kind of use that big word and don't really focus because there's this promise, faster, cheaper. A big thing is, flexibility. But at the same time, when we hear about all this flexibility, I can't tell you how many customers I've talked to that have said, oh my gosh, we've got these surprise bills or this escalating cost that comes with cloud that was just so not expected. Imagine some of that has to do with the planning, but how do you find teams that you work with strike the right balance between that scalability and cost control?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is very closely related sort of to the question that you just asked previously. And I just had a conversation with one of our sales VPs just this week around this exact topic. And he was telling me that a lot of his customers are finding that there's, a lot of costs associated with the cloud. And there are, but I think again, it comes back to not trying to boil the ocean. And if you start with the business problem, then, and everything sort of comes out from that, then what is the data that you actually need in the cloud to drive whatever process or analytics or initiative that you have, what we refer to as your critical data elements. What are really those critical data elements that you need? If you have a system like SAP and you try to dump everything out of that and push that into Databricks, that's going to be a lot of data that you most likely, I would say definitely do not need. What you may need are specific tables, specific attributes, really focusing on that and moving what is relevant to the business problem that you're trying to solve will not only make the exercise far less overwhelming, but will help you control costs. And you're now able to measure the ROI from that initiative because it was tied to something that you were trying to do, which can help justify, any of the costs that you may incur. So really, I think it's very related to the first question that you asked.
Yeah, and I think about, what you're saying in the first question about, there being focused business use cases and things like that. Like, too much data in a fraud detection use case is going to render that inaccurate. Same thing with customer experience. It feels like if you don't have the right data from the get, all of this is moot. And, I don't know, like I'm feeling like using cloud is like your excuse to clean your closet a little bit, get rid of that shirt you're not wearing.
Exactly right. Yeah. You don't want to take duplicate data, contradictory data, data which lacks integrity, as we like to say, into the cloud. That's, it's not just a cost issue. It's a bigger problem than that. You don't want to be sort of carrying, 5 versions of something and then not know which version holds the truth. So absolutely, you got to clean that closet out. So if you're moving houses, it's time to throw out the stuff that you're using anymore.
For those that turned into the legacy modernization, we're cleaning the basement, now we're cleaning our closet. We're going to Marie Kondo all of your data is basically what this whole series is going to be about. In speaking about like the data piece of it, data quality also often makes or breaks any project, whether that's cloud, legacy, anything. If the data is bad, the data is bad. Why do you think like trusted, clean data is so critical to making environments cloud ready? Or, I think about a lot of customers are thinking even a step further than that, AI.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, everybody's thinking and talking about AI. No one wants to sort of be left behind on that, which makes a lot of sense. And, data quality has been important from forever ago, right? Like it's always been important. If you're trying to do something, you obviously want your business decisions to be based on data that you can trust. Who wants to base their decisions on, incomplete or poor quality or, data which is not enriched. But when you add AI into the equation, it's like you had the fire of data quality and then you went and poured gasoline on that fire, right? Because now that fire is like, whoosh, because you've got agentic AI agents that are making independent, autonomous decisions for business processes. And yes, you're going to have humans in the loop in some of those cases, but in others you may not. So as we go into sort of this automated world, and it sounds so trite, we say garbage in, garbage out, right? Everyone's saying that. But it is just so true. You could have the most sophisticated system in the world, but if that system is based on data which is inaccurate, then the most wonderful algorithms or large language models are not going to produce kind of the results that you're looking for. So I think AI just kind of fuels this discussion even more and just makes every problem that was already there just that much bigger.
I was going to say, it feels like it's taking a magnifying glass to everything that's wrong or broken in your org and just like shining a light on it.
Right. And it's funny because people look at it as the solution. It's like, oh, this can solve my problems, and it can, but it's certainly not going to take your, the focus away from data quality. Like you said, it kind of magnifies that even more.
Yeah. And, I think another thing when it comes to, it's not just the promise of AI, but there's also this promise of like, we have this in our heads. I hear a lot about it from analysts like this business user that self-serves. And I feel like cloud is, kind of giving that as a huge promise, like this idea of self-service and access. But there is this other layer of that, which is governance and security. How do you see organizations empower their users for the cloud, but also just not lose control of that very important governance, security, and compliance?
Yeah, I think governance and security and compliance are going to become more and more important as time goes on. Like from a sort of ecosystem and infrastructure perspective, those things are becoming more complex, right? We're talking about people moving workloads to the cloud, but it's not an all or nothing. So you end up with these heterogeneous environments that have, yes, some cloud data warehouses. You got, Databricks in there, Snowflake in there. You may also have other on-prem databases. You could have IBM I systems, IBM Z systems, SAP systems. You have all kinds of different things, and your ecosystem is fairly complex. And then, things like lineage and governance become really, really important because you've got you want to see where's the truth really coming from, and where's this field really coming from, and what is it tied to. And in terms of governance, so many of those regulations, especially tied to AI, we've been talking about AI, you've got the EU AI Act, you have so much legislation that's now coming out in the United States. So there's going to be a hyper focus on governance and security, not only because now that you're in the cloud, people are concerned about that, but through all of the new regulations. So I think it's going to become more and more paramount to be able to govern these kind of complex ecosystems, and people are turning to strategies like data mesh, more of a federated, distributed model, or data fabric, more of a centralized model. But really, it's being able to look across systems and figure out how is your data moving from a lineage perspective, and then obviously from a governance perspective, really understanding what your assets are, and what they're tied to from a business standpoint. All of that becomes really, really important as AI grows, as these ecosystems kind of broaden even beyond where they're at today.
It's almost like you have to embrace your complexity to move through it to get to that end goal. Like it's okay to have that complexity. I know there was a Gartner research report I read recently on like CIO priorities for 26. And one of the things they were saying is like a lot of these CIOs just live in a complex world. Like there is these heterogeneous environments, there is this level of complexity, and it just doesn't seem to be going away. Last year we did Trust 24, and we had TD Bank speak, and the person that had been working at TD Bank said, when I started here 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we were going to get rid of the mainframe. And look at that. We still have it because we have to move this data to the cloud, but this system is still important to our business. So I can see that, like, it just, it feels like the complexity isn't going away, even though the technology advancements are speeding up.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the mainframe is great at certain things, right? And cloud data warehouses are great at other things. And so I think it's more sort of which tools are fit for the purpose that I have. Again, kind of going back to that, starting with what are the business needs, and and some of those needs may be better served with an IBM Z system still.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. As much as people think that that's going to go away, I don't really think it is what time has taught us. Or whether it's going to be with like the latest and greatest, technology that's sitting on cloud data warehouse and like AI and stuff on top of that. But yeah, I think we do have to embrace the complexity. That's not going anywhere.
Yeah. And, we're cleaning out the mess and we're embracing the complexity. I love it. So, 15 minutes goes by so fast. So I have one final question for you. I think much like cleaning out our closet, modernization is not a one-time event. How should companies think about modernization as a continuous journey when they're looking to unlock agility and innovation?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. You start with a business problem, but maybe even within that business problem, you start with a piece of that. Like what engineering has taught us, and I'm an engineer by education, is, waterfall doesn't work so well. It's an agile methodology that really yields results and allows us to pivot, allows us to fail and adjust. And I think it's the same thing with cloud modernization. It is iterative. You are going to do it a business problem at a time. And the truth is, in terms of the technology landscape, it's changing every single day, right? Literally every single day. So what we think is the right answer today is probably not going to be the right answer tomorrow, which is another reason I think to be agile and to be iterative sort of in your approach. But I think if you start with, what is going to bring the most amount of value to my organization, and not try to boil the ocean, and really tie an ROI to what you're doing, and then do that over and over again, you can keep pace with, the best that we have to offer, but then always keeping in mind, what is best, not just what's trendy.
Yes.
And what's ChatGPT telling me to do? Like that's great advice, but then what's relevant to me? What's relevant to my business, my company, my organization, my teammates, my board and my executive leadership team? Like what's important to them? I think starting with that, but then being iterative and agile in your approach can, lead to really good results.
Love it. So embrace the chaos, be focused, be
Yeah.
agile. Such great advice. Nidhi, thank you so much for joining us today. It was so wonderful to speak with you. And for those of you that want more of our sessions, we have 2 more to go: process automation and data architecture. We hope to see you there. But thanks, Nidhi, again for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Ariana. Always a pleasure.